Good afternoon, everyone. Welcome to the November 5th meeting of the Yakima School Board. We do offer Spanish interpretation services from Jorge with Language Connection. If you need translation assistance in person, please check with Jorge for a device, and I'll ask Jorge to please translate this information for us.
Para aquellos que necesiten de la asistencia de un intérprete, estoy aquí para hacerlo. Tenemos el sistema y estoy disponible. Gracias.
Thank you, Jorge. I always get nervous when I have my back to people, so I apologize. I apologize for that. If you wish to make public comment today, there are two options available. The first option is for commenting on agenda items only, and the second option, which comes towards the end of the meeting, is for all other topics. In order to speak tonight, you'll need to sign two forms, the sign-in form and the guidelines form. Barb, would you please take the roll?
Director Walker?
Here.
Director Rice?
Here.
Vice President Villanueva?
Here.
President Beckett?
Here.
And Director Navarro Jr. is unexcused at this time.
I understand we have some students to help us this evening. Would you like to introduce the students for us, please? Excellent. Welcome. Thank you both for being here. We'll start with the Pledge of Allegiance, please.
Ready? Begin. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
And is the character word of the month on the list too, please? Excellent. Thank you.
The word of the month is kind, showing compassion, friendliness, and consideration towards others.
Excellent. Before you both run off, could you tell us both what grade you're in and what you enjoy most about being here at Lewis and Clark?
Hello, my name is Xavier Garza. I'm in 7th grade at Lewis and Clark Middle School, and what I'm most proud of is my band and music.
What do you play?
I'm a percussionist, so
Excellent,
I
yes.
play everything
A
drums.
lot of things, yeah.
Everything.
Awesome. That's great.
Hello, I'm Elena Garcia, and I'm an 8th grader here at Lewis and Clark Middle School. What I enjoy most about being here at school is that I enjoy being an ASB, and I am proud of that I am part of the Student Senate Council.
Excellent. Well, thank you both for being here, and thank you both very much for being involved in your student government. That's absolutely fantastic. We hope you have a wonderful year. Thank you.
Today, the schools of the Yakima School District rest on the ancestral lands of the 14 confederated tribes and bands of the Yakima Nation.
Hoy las escuelas del Distrito Escolar de Yakima descansan en las tierras ancestrales de las 14 tribus y bandas confederadas de la nación Yakima.
The people of the Yakima Nation inhabited more than 12 million acres.
La gente de la nación Yakima habitó más de 10 billones de acres.
Across Adams, Benton, Chelan, Douglas, Franklin, Grant, Kittitas, Klickitat, and Yakima counties.
En los condados de Adams, Benton, Chelan, Douglas, Grant, Franklin, Kittitas, Klickitat, y Yakima.
Today we honor those native peoples who are tied to the land through history, legends, and culture.
Hoy honramos a estos pueblos originales que están vinculados en la tierra a través de historias, leyendas y culturas.
We acknowledge the descendants who live in the world today.
Reconocemos a sus descendientes que viven en el mundo de hoy.
We thank the caretakers of this land who have lived here and continue to live here since time immemorial.
Agradezcamos a los guardianes de la tierra, quienes han vivido aquí y continúan viviendo aquí desde tiempos inmemoriales.
An acknowledgement is a simple, powerful way to show respect.
Un reconocimiento es una manera simple y poderosa de mostrar respeto.
And a step toward correcting the stories and practices that erase Indigenous peoples' history and culture.
Y un paso hacia la corrección de las historias y prácticas que borran la historia y la cultura de los pueblos indígenas.
It also honors the truth. También honra la verdad.
As a school district, we will continue to build upon our relations with the Yakima Nation.
Como distrito escolar, continuaremos fortaleciendo nuestras relaciones con la nación Yakima.
In our board docs agenda items, you'll find a link to 2 different obituaries today, both for Karen Dawn Garrison and for Robert Leroy Hamilton, both members of our Yakima School District family who we have lost recently. I would encourage you to review those obits if you haven't done so already. And I'd invite you to please join me in a moment of silence in memory of both Karen and Robert. Thank you. I get to introduce Principal Vogelson for our presentation from LC, and then I understand a tour. Is that correct?
Correct.
Some sort of a tour? Excellent, excellent. Thank you for hosting us today.
Thank you for being here. Thank you for coming. We're very proud of LC. I do have both of my assistant principals here this evening, and I just want to take a moment to introduce them because without them, this place wouldn't run as effectively as it does. So please, Stephanie Casillas, and I brought with me Swan Eaton over from the Pasco School District finally, which was a big win for us. And so I'm thrilled that she's with us over here this school year. She's doing a wonderful job. And been absolutely thrilled to have Stephanie Casillas join us from the elementary level. And it's been very wonderful for the McClure students to have that transition piece this year. And they're both just a wonderful team and an asset to our building this year. So happy to have them here and wanted to recognize them this evening. So we're starting with the 4 pillars, which are, and I'm just going to put them all up here, but they're the foundation of the PLC process. And I have been doing PLCs for a very long time. This is not anything new to me. And I built this work first in the Pasco School District before coming here. And we really, at LC, really spent the whole first year of my work here, and this was my 4th year at LC, building the 4 pillars. And the 4 pillars are mission, vision, values, and goals. And you can also see them in anywhere that you walk in our building. And the importance of mission and vision is that they are short and memorable. Because we want our students and our staff to be able to remember what those mission and vision statements are, and we need them to own them, and we need them to be the why of our work. And so we revisit them frequently, and there isn't really a staff member or a student in our building that couldn't tell you that we are all about in this building being a leader, a learner, and a legend, and why they do that work here in our building and what that is for. And most recently, we were super excited to share a picture of our student here in the bottom left-hand corner. They were playing a game in class, and they were playing a hangman game. And what the student chose to do hangman around was leader, learner, and legend, which is, I think, another powerful statement that that's what our kids value here, and we reinforce that constantly in our building. And then our values are something that we took a lot of time and a lot of thought that we put into, and this is a condensed version, but you have a purple, of course it's purple, folder in front of you, and in that on the right side is a full copy of our collective commitments. And those collective commitments are a true important pillar. They call them values, but oftentimes in the PLC world, you'll hear those referenced as collective commitments. And they are, there's also a document that's posted in our library that every staff member in our building has signed. And when we revisit those at the beginning of every year, because they are the things that we commit to as our staff for our families and our students in this building. And as we onboard new staff, we review those with them, and they also sign our commitments to our families. And so they are an important pillar as part of the 4-pillar process. And then the 4th pillar is goals. And those goals are really the goals that you do yearly as part of your school improvement plan. And so for us, those are the 3 goals of our school improvement plan, and you see a condensed version up here. But the first goal is to build PLCs around reading, writing, math, and then science, because in 8th grade we get assessed in science. But it's really all the elements of building the PLC process for all content areas. But those are the areas that we get feedback in our state assessments. So those are the 3 areas that we are focusing on this year. And we are going to be sharing with you what our focus, because we're picking a specific strand to focus on, which is math. And that came this year specifically out of work last year with our staff around looking at something called our tiered fidelity inventory. And that tiered fidelity inventory is an assessment that we do, which actually came out of the work of the PBIS world, or looking at positive behavioral interventions and supports. That's where that original TFI came from, where you analyze how are you doing in that work at the end of every year. But now they've layered that in for reading and math. And so our math team did that work, and they took a look at what do we need to change or do for math? And out of that came some really good action steps for our school improvement plan. And so they really guided what were some of those action steps that we needed to do in our PLC process this year. So we took that based on some input from staff. And so we really wanted to focus on math this year, growing the math piece. Not that we're not growing ELA, because we are. In fact, I took over ELA for the observation process because I was an ELA teacher, and I'm specifically working with those teachers. But we wrote action steps in our goals to focus on math this year and to measure that growth. And then our secondary focus with that, when I first came 4 years ago, we were in school improvement in every single area. And since then, I'm very proud to say that we're only in school improvement in 2 areas, which is our MLs and our students with disabilities. And so our students with disabilities are layered into our goal under PLCs, and we're doing work in that area. But we separated out this year work around our MLs specifically, and I'll talk about that in just a second. We have waited to do that work for our students with disabilities and our MLs because we first needed to build the plate. And the plate is really the work around PLCs and building that process of our staff really understanding how to do the PLC process. So we've spent the last 3 years of getting our teams really good at understanding of being able to develop those units of study, how to look at and analyze data, and how to start responding to that data. And so each team has successfully now created at least 3 units of study, gone through some coaching processes with myself and our instructional IF, and they've gotten really good at understanding how to know and be able to do that process. Now we're ready to layer in some coaching strategies for them. And so, and some very strong instructional strategies. And really good instructional strategies are ML instructional strategies. And those ML instructional strategies are good for all kids. What's good for MLs is good for all kids. And so we started with something called an action team. And in our building, we have action teams already established for our PBIS team. And last year, we established an action team for response to intervention, which is how do we respond when those kids on the data are not getting that. So we're working on that piece already. But then we decided we needed to launch out and do specifically something to support those MLs now and start building strong instructional strategies because our teachers are ready to layer that onto that plate of the PLC process. So we developed a 3rd action team. That team went to a PLC-based ML conference last year where they learned about how to develop that action team and what are some good instructional strategies. And then they came back and they created, who else needs to be on that team? Who else in our building needs to be part of this team to help grow that work? And they recruited for that team. And I actually just got an update. We're very blessed in this building because we have a ML TOSA from the district that is one of our EL teachers here now that said, I'd really like to lead and guide that work. And so she is the one that's actually leading that action team and reports back to our ILT, our instructional leadership team in the building, and just gave an update and has created all the meetings for the year. And we'll be writing a one-year action plan that will then create the plan for our school improvement plan based on what they create together.
Vicki,
Yes,
just for the benefit of our viewing audience,
yes,
could you identify what ML and EL
sure.
stands for?
ML stands for multilingual learners, and that really is the new verbiage for what an EL is, which is an English language learner. It's really one and the same now. Thank you for that. So we're really excited about that work for our MLs this year and the work that that team will be creating and writing that plan, which will then be the plan for our school improvement plan this year for that goal area. With that, we will be looking and analyzing data to ensure that that work is happening and that we're getting the growth that we're needing from that. But one area specifically where we'll be looking at, and we're really excited, this is the first benchmark data from our building for the benchmark math assessments. And this data is so powerful and is so needed because in your slide deck is our SBA data. But when we get SBA data, we get that at the end of the year. And we can't wait until the end of the year to figure out if our kids got it from all the work we did this year. We need this data, which if you look at this data and you look at our SBA data, it's pretty much aligned. What we see is that our 6th grade is getting about 20%, and our 7th grade team has a drop, and then our 8th grade team picks it back up and actually has been increasing scores over the last 4 years. And so what this data enables us to do, and I'll tell you a little story for a second. As soon as this data came out, our 6th grade team looked at it and went, wow, what happened between teacher A and teacher B? So they asked our instructional facilitator to come in and take a look at this data, or to come in and kind of watch their lesson. And they found teacher B was teaching something a little bit different than teacher A. And the instructional facilitator provided that feedback, and they went, oh my gosh, all this time we never knew that that was happening. And they're going to make that quick adjustment. And then we're going to see scores improve from teacher A to teacher B, which is exactly what the PLC process is all about. And then 7th grade, last year, taught this unit. And then when we did the coaching process with them, they learned about RTI and how to look and analyze their data. And they went, oh, we can do an intervention after we teach it? You sure can. So before we went in and did the coaching process, they went back and provided the intervention. And then 50% more of their kids passed the assessment. So I told them, you just did RTI. And they said, what? I said, yeah, you just did RTI. And they were like, we did? Yes. So they gave the benchmark again. Now they're going to have to go back and do some reteaching, which will then, by the end of the year, we're no longer waiting to see what those scores are. They're providing intervention to increase these scores as the year goes on, which makes this really powerful data. Our 8th grade team, which you guys have already seen in some of your board, they presented to you before on a board session on the PLC process. They do that intervention work every week. Week in, week out, they're providing interventions for kids, and that's why we're seeing over the last 4 years an increase in their scores, because they're doing those interventions week in and week out for students, and we're seeing that systemic growth for those students. So that's why this data is going to be so powerful for all of our kids across the system. Transformational leadership. In your folders, I'm just going to walk through. This is one thing that we've done here at LC that's new this year. That was a tool, like I'm always thinking outside the box of how to make this work easier for our teachers. How do I make it more accessible? How do we make it something that can be quicker and easier for them to do? And this was one of those tools. So I'll just walk you through it. So the first one is actually a Google, we call it our one-pager. And the first page was something that TNL gave us. And it was a new version of how to create a unit of study based on Janelle Keating's bookshelf. And so they color coded it with the bookshelf. And I thought, well, this is a no-brainer. We need to incorporate this because this is something that at some point should be district-wide. And all of our teachers should be using across the district. And so we need to support that and we need to implement it. So I went back to Adam, who's my IF, and said, he always takes my crazy ideas because I'm not as techie as he is. And I said, Adam, I need you to create me something because right now how we do this for staff is we have a Google folder. And our teachers have this document, and they have this document, and they have this document, they have that document, and then they have to open up all these documents in order to do this work. And I said, Adam, can we take all of these documents and can we put them on one page? So that in that document, instead of opening all these things, they have a Google Doc that has everything in one spot. And so he said, yeah, I could do that. That's a great idea. And then when I went to Summer Institute, if you open to the last page, they started looking at data in a new way, which would help with our RTI process, which is much like what you saw here and the district is using. And knowing that this was probably coming for my staff, I wanted to start introducing it before they saw it. So I put that in here to start getting them thinking about RTI and being intensive, strategic, and benchmark for kids. So I put that in our one-pager so they could start practicing that language and thinking about the RTI process, response to intervention, and then knowing that benchmark learning or benchmark assessments were coming and they were going to be working with these. How did I start front-loading that and making it easier for my staff? So we created this one-pager. All of these documents that are behind that is from my 8th grade math team, and all of these documents are now embedded within that Google page. So I took that to ILT because if I put it out, that's not the way to do that. So I took it to my ILT, I shared it with my ILT and said, hey, I came up with this great idea. Adam made it happen. Should we do it? My ILT said, that's a great idea. Let's do that. So then I took it to my staff. ILT thinks this is a great idea. This is why we're doing this. Let's explain the why behind it. Then my staff said, do we have to do it? My answer was, nope. You can keep using the folder system, but here's the benefit to using it. Because if I make them do it, what are they going to do? They're not going to use it. So my answer was no, you don't have to use it, but here's the why and here's the benefit to using it. And then in one-on-one coaching sessions that we do, I keep pulling it back out. We keep sharing it. And I have teams that are using it and slowly transitioning over every single one of they've already transitioned over their units of study. And then I have another teacher, let me find it here. I have another teacher who took it and made it better. Like he's super Google spreadsheet savvy, which is fine. Like he improved it and now teachers are like, can we use that version? Absolutely. Where are we going to be tight with things and where are we going to be loose and give them the autonomy to grow and make things better? Absolutely you can, because what I want you to do is have the concept and then make it better. Absolutely. So they're doing that work. That is transformational leadership. I want to share the last piece because I really thought long and hard about how I wanted to say this to you, and I really just want to read it. We need to continue to focus in our building on ELA and math instruction while supporting growth for our students with disabilities and our multi-language learners. Our work with inclusionary practices and MLL instructional strategies has already begun to provide growth for these students. I firmly believe that we will continue to grow through our work in the PLC process for all students as evidenced by our work through growth data and our SBA data in our slide deck. When we started in year one, I asked my staff to take a PLC vocabulary test, which was quite an exhaustive list. And I remember them feeling lost and unsure of what this whole PLC thing was. I promised them if they stuck with me, they would get there. Now I hear them daily in deep, rich conversations regarding student instruction, around standards and high levels of learning. I've had to stop recent professional development to point out to our teachers this very thing And their comment to me is, this is the way we do business now. And it is. It truly has changed how we communicate with each other. Your gift of time on Monday and Wednesdays has been invaluable in moving this work forward. I do think it is best, though, that if you hear it from my staff themselves. So I will end with a quick video from answering the question, what is the impact of implementation of PLCs here at Lewis and Clark?
Hey, Ms. Canham, what has been the impact of the implementation of PLCs here at Lewis and Clark?
So for myself and my teaching partner, we have become way more clued into where our students are with their learning. And we've also been able to take the opportunity to intervene for our students. So when they don't understand a specific concept, we take time to actually pause, reteach it, relearn it, or go a little bit deeper for the kids who have gotten it already.
Awesome, thank you. Ms. Preston, what has been the impact of the implementation of the PLCs here at Lewis and Clark?
Well, the primary impact for me, being involved in a professional learning team, has been that it gave me a common language and a common purpose with my co-teachers. I'm a special education inclusion teacher, so I co-teach with all of my colleagues, and having the targets broken down from the standards gives us explicit information to share and talk about in the creation of our lesson plans or things that we're working on. It's really provided us with a means of communicating clearly about what it is we're trying to teach our students. And then, of course that helps all students, but it's really helpful for students with special learning needs to have that targeted focus.
Awesome, thank you so much.
You're welcome.
Hey, Ms. Scruton, what has been the impact of the implementation of PLCs here at Lewis and Clark?
Well, in regard to Washington State history, my co-partner and I have found that by doing the PLC, we've become more concentrated on seeing the goals for the individual students, making sure that they get good data response back. They're involved in the data collection, and we're implementing the interventions and extensions. We've already did that, and we've noticed a considerable increase in their grades.
Awesome, thank you so much.
Yep.
All right, Mr. Cordero, what has been the impact of the implementation of PLCs at Lewis and Clark?
For me, I think the greatest impact, it's been clarity, being able to understand each step that kids are working towards, and being able to kind of look at what I'm grading, so when I'm reflecting on their works, I'm like, okay, this is where they should be, this is where they're at, and it's just understanding more of what it is I'm doing here as a teacher.
Awesome, thank you. Well, usually I'm the one behind the camera asking the questions, but I had to chime in on this one. It has been amazing. We have teachers who are collaborating around standards and around learning targets, around strategies that are working for our kids. We have teams that are regularly analyzing data and looking at how students are doing and how they're struggling, and then creating interventions for those kids and allowing them to retake tests and improve their scores. We have students who are a part of the learning. They're taking ownership for their learning as they reach learning targets and move up the ladder. They're getting rewarded, not just externally, but internally too. So it's been very, very exciting. And the impact, it's been huge. But just wait, there's much more to come.
I think the next slide is questions. Questions. Do you have any questions for me that I can answer?
I don't have specific question, but I just wanted to compliment you on your leadership and bringing these techniques to staff to help the students identify those areas where they may be behind a little bit, and to bring them closer to the green part that we want to see and not the red part. So thank you very much and congratulations on your work.
Thank you. It is my greatest pleasure to be here at LC.
I'll just add, no question, but just want to compliment you on your leadership skills. And as you were describing, using the tools and resources that you created and shared, the idea that you can't make somebody do something, you could, but that may not be the most effective outcome. And so that you were able to successfully bring the group along. And when someone improved it, great, that's a good thing. And, the team got excited about that. So I appreciate your, the leadership skill and tact you have and understanding kind of some of those nuances. And yeah, I appreciate that. Thank you.
Thank you so much.
Anything else for Principal Fogelson? Okay, well then we'll follow your lead as far as the tour is concerned.
Well, we are not going very far. So
Okay.
where you're going is actually a goal 3, which is to reduce our office discipline referrals. And Kate Waters is our behavior intervention specialist. She's right over here. And she's going to take you to see what's called our R&R. And I'm just going to leave it at that and let Kate explain what she does.
Been a minute since you've been in a chair like that?
It has been.
It has.
It does bring back memories.
Yeah. All right, well, as Ms. Fogelson said, I'm Kate Waters. I'm our behavioral intervention specialist here at Lewis and Clark. This space is called the R&R room, and I've actually had a handful of kiddos who have asked me at times, what does the R and the R stand for? And it stands for a lot of different things. Honestly, it's whatever the kids need when they're coming through the door. It could be a reset space, it could be a rejuvenation space, it could be an opportunity to be able to rest if there's a lot going on in their worlds, which many of our kids have a lot going on in their worlds. The kiddos who come in this space come in for multiple reasons, but a lot of our students are coming into the R&R room to be able to work on some of their social emotional skills, as well as executive functioning. Our kiddos come in here to be able to have that chance to have somebody to guide them in the process of saying, for example, they know that if they've made a mistake and they've ended up with an office referral and made a poor judgment in respects of how they handled maybe a situation with another student and got into an argument with them or something of that nature, they know what they already did wrong. But the kicker is sometimes they don't necessarily know how to do it better the next time because they have a set of tools and that toolbox might be kind of limited. So what we work on in here is helping those students be able to have different methodologies to tackle those problems that are going to be a part of the normal everyday middle school life, but also as they transition into adulthood, how to deal with those situations such as time management as well. How do we handle having 7 classes and being successful with making sure that we're getting all of our work in on time, that we're asking for help when we need it? Because we definitely have those kiddos who at times will avoid that work. When we take a look at the impact of what's happened in here, goal number 3 for us here at LC is centered around the idea of reducing our office referrals by 10% every year. And last year we met that goal, very, very successfully met that goal, which is awesome. A lot of that work came from our students being able to have that chance to reflect on how to handle those situations differently so that they're not repeat offenders because they don't have additional strategies on how to handle conflict or how to handle the idea of, I'm avoiding a class, so I'm going to skip class. Those types of things are critical for them to be able to have somebody help coach them through that process. And also to progress monitor and to be that go-to point person here, which is the second piece of this here, which is our different interventions that we have here. We have 7 major Tier 2 interventions. One is a behavior agreement, and these are the pieces that I am super excited to be able to say from last year. We had 12 students who were on other pieces of Tier 2 interventions that were more intensive, more on a day-to-day or weekly basis. And our behavior agreements happen at typically the end of the year, and sometimes it can happen in the midst of the year depending upon their success rate. And it's basically saying you've been doing amazing work. You are showing that you no longer need the specific intervention support on a regular basis. So we're going to draft an agreement between myself and the students, our counselors, our administrative team, their teachers, as well as their parents to say, expectations are that you will maintain these areas that you've already shown you've done really well in, and unless we see an area that you're slipping back in, you're ready to go out and do this without the training wheels anymore. You're ready to be able to take that next step and show that you've got those skills and you've already been successful with them. And now we're just agreeing to say, unless there's a need to put some of those supports back in place, you're ready to go. So we had 12 students who transitioned into that right away at the beginning of the year and have been doing outstanding. The other pieces that come into play, sometimes we have kiddos who just simply need to take a break because they're dealing with some overwhelming stressful situations, and they need a place to just quietly kind of reset themselves. It is also sometimes where they feel themselves getting a little stressed and frustrated, and then they know that if it continues forward, that they might find themselves making poor decisions. So they ask to have that opportunity to come here, reset, talk through, problem solve in a very short 5 to 10 minute time frame, and then head back on to class successfully. The other things that come in are check and connect. We have a handful of kiddos who just check in each morning and just to see how they're doing as far as a 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 scale, indicating to us very quickly whether or not they need some additional support, and then we intervene and check and see what that support is. We also have check in, check out, which is where the kids get feedback from each one of their teachers on a regular basis, and then that feedback comes back to me every single day so that I can see where are some areas that we still need to grow in. Are they struggling with getting assignments done on time? Are they struggling with conflicts in class or behavioral elements in class? School Note Home is check in, check out with an additional piece where parents get that opportunity to give feedback as far as how things are going at home on a daily basis. What other pieces of support can we have there? So it's communication between school and home on a daily basis, as well as with teachers. Self-monitoring protocol. The kiddos have graduated past the point of needing that's very specific class-by-class feedback, and now they're rating themselves to see how did they do throughout the day. The idea is we're growing those social emotional skills in our students. We're growing those abilities for them to be able to no longer need those supports. The work that we do in here has reduced our need for interventions with these kiddos and allowed them to transition out and be successful within their day-to-day classroom, which has been an awesome privilege to be able to be a main part of doing that with them. That's kind of the nuts and bolts of what we do in here. And now I'm going to open up to you. Do you have any questions?
I know it's difficult at middle school. What are some of your tier 1 interventions?
Absolutely.
That you're doing for social emotional learning?
Yep. So some of the things that we're doing in the tier 1 level is all of our 6th graders have that opportunity to get a series of social emotional lessons that happen throughout the school years to set the foundation so that they have a better idea of how do I handle the big emotions or the big changes that happen as you transition into middle school? How do you deal with conflict resolution? Basics of time management. In addition to that, the tier 1 intervention pieces that we have systems in place, which is our PBIS team, to recognize and reward our students for the outstanding work that they do. And it isn't always just the students who are A honor roll students. It's the students who make growth. Our Student of the Month program is a great way that we have the chance to see the growth and recognize the growth in our kids. Any other questions?
Congratulations on using this model.
Thank you.
When my son was in middle school, we could have used something like this.
I appreciate that.
Because
Thank you.
he would intercept the calls to home before I got home from work. And then I would never know. And that's part of being a sneaky middle schooler, right? So thank you for reaching out and including parents in this process and for your dedication to making sure that kids develop that level of accountability that we all need to have as adults. So.
Oh, I appreciate that. Thank you. A big part of that conversation that I have with kiddos when it is going to be a tough conversation home is how to navigate and own those decisions that they made, and how to, we practice, we rehearse having that tough conversation at home so that they feel prepared going into that and can anticipate like what that response might be, and to be able to say, you know what, I did in fact make a mistake, but here's what I've learned about what I'm going to do different next time, because I've got some strategies. And it's been really cool to have some of our parents actually call and connect with me and saying, I don't know all the details of the conversation that you had with my kiddo, but man, oh man, my kid came home and did something they've never done, which is they had a conversation with me and owned it from the front and said, Mom or Dad, here's what I'm going to do different next time. I made some mistakes. So, and that's that's the best blessing that I get to have, is to see them transition and grow. So.
I tell you, I developed this program while I was in SoCal Public Schools, and I took it to Pasco, and then I brought it here. But the key to it is the right person to see. And Kate Waters has taken this program that I developed a whole other level. And she's truly phenomenal with the kids, and she's truly phenomenal at what she does. And so it has superseded anything that I've done in the past with her. She's really good at what she does.
Thank you.
And I can attest to it as well. I was a teacher under Vicki at McLaughlin Middle School when we had about 1,800 students. And they called it the pause room there because it was McLaughlin Panthers, so it was pause as PAWS. But for them to be able, and it was the first time in any school district I've worked in that I saw that, and then I saw the impact of the students there. So I was so blessed to be hired to be here and work under Vicki again in the capacity as an administrator and learn how this program is still very successful. And Kate does an amazing job.
Thank you.
And the support she gives us with the students that we're working with is just like, I have no words for it. It's just awesome.
Thank you.
Have you all done an analysis of student outcomes of kids who receive the Tier 2 supports? Like what do their grades look like coming out of 8th grade, for example?
Yeah, so as far as the transition, whether they're 6th grader, I continue to progress monitor their rate of growth as they transition to 7th and 8th grade. The one piece that I would like to do is be able to take a look at our kiddos who are 8th graders now to be able to see when they transition to high school next year. I have followed up with a couple of our students who were part of this process who are now freshmen, and we have one young lady who, man, oh man, she had a rough 7th grade year. I wasn't here yet. I met her at the very beginning of 8th grade, and her and I worked together very closely with family and with her teachers about different strategies. And again, like any one of us, she had moments of setback. You know, you have 7, 8 good days, and then you have a couple crummy days. But it was watching her transformation and watching her go, you know what, Ms. Waters, I just kind of chewed you out, and I'm really sorry about that. And her mom was flabbergasted. She's like, my daughter never does that. And now she's doing that at home. And as she's transitioned on to high school, she's one of my kiddos who mom still contacts and says, you know what, she is doing so good because she has the tools that you provided her. But to be able to continue to track them. So I track them here as far as their grades, even as they continue on without needing our support in here, and they're continuing to be successful. That's the beauty of the behavior agreement. It isn't a like, wow, you know, you messed up and like you're back on some of the other intensive pieces because it's a punishment. It's like, hey, we need some supports there again. And the conversations that I have are first and foremost with the kiddo. What can I help you with? Because these interventions should be happening with them, not to them. They need to be a player at the table, and that's what's different here. Setting those goals with the kids makes a monumental difference, because then they get some input on, you know what, I think that will work for me, or you know what, that really won't work for me. So yes, the progress monitor has been great, and they've been successful at doing what they're doing. Those 12 kiddos who are on behavior agreements this year right away showed that success, academically, behaviorally, and attendance-wise. Well, thank you so much for joining us. It has been a pleasure to introduce you to what we do here at LC to make all of the academic pieces that our teams work so diligently on even more successful because our kids are ready to be in the mindset to focus on those components. So thank you so much.
In accordance with RCW 42.30.140, the Board of Directors is closing this meeting to the public at 4:47 p.m. to move into a closed session for the purpose of collective bargaining sessions with employee organizations, including contract negotiations, grievance meetings, and discussions relating to the interpretation or application of a labor agreement for approximately 20 minutes. So we are in closed session for 20 minutes. There being no further business for the closed session, the Board of Directors at 5:08 p.m. adjourns from closed session into regular session. That takes us to our section on updates. Does any member of the board have an update this evening? All right, then we'll move to the superintendent's update.
Thank you, President Beckett, members of the board. I have three updates. One, the first being that the program of basic education compliance by the State Board of Education has been completed. So Yakima School District has been granted full certification, and it's a requirement of WAC 180, 16, 195 that occurs annually. So we're pleased to announce that. Second announcement is that we have a school that received the first annual Culture Kickoff Award, and that is Davis High School. This is an award sponsored by the Association of Washington School Leaders, and it takes into account intentional, inclusive, and student-centered approach to launching the school year. It is so new that I do not even have all of the requirements of what was completed, so I'm trying to get that from Principal Hasty, but this was announced very recently within the last 24 hours. So the Culture Kickoff Award goes to Davis High School from their state association. And lastly, I did want to share with, obviously with you, but the entire community, that we have received the announcement of a Washington State Board of Distinction for our school board. So this is a recognition for exemplary equity leadership through strategic legislative advocacy, securing equitable funding and resources for students while championing statewide policy reform and educational justice. So this marks the fifth consecutive year that the board has been honored in some capacity. So as Director Villanueva exits, I'd just like to call out that there was a Board of Distinction granted from the state WASDA, Washington State School Directors Association, in 2021, 2022. In 2023, the board received an award for student voice. It's the Magna Silver Award from the National School Board Association. There was also a Board of Distinction Award for 2024, the State Board of the Year for 2024, large district status, and now 2025 State Board of Distinction. Again, congratulations. That's it.
Before we move on, we do want to take a moment to recognize Vice President Villanueva. The way our state functions, the new school board directors are sworn in at the first school board meeting after the election has been certified, which will be at the end of this month. And so Graciella's replacement will be sworn in at that point in time. And it is our privilege and duty to make you feel awkward here for a few more minutes.
Are we filming this?
before we do that. So first, the school district and the broader Yakima Valley community honors the service and leadership of Graciela Villanueva here today. Villanueva is stepping down after more than a decade of service, 13 years to be exact, as director on the Yakima School Board, currently serving as our vice president of the board representing position 1. She leaves behind a legacy of advocacy, compassion, and unwavering commitment to student success. Originally appointed in 2011 and subsequently elected to 3 terms, Villanueva helped guide the Yakima School District through years of transformation. During her tenure, the district established dual language programming, expanded mental health supports, increased graduation rates, and earned numerous awards, including currently the large district school board of the year recognition for the state of Washington. Villanueva is the Chief Human Resources Officer at Yakima Valley Farm Workers Clinic, one of the region's largest community health organizations. Her professional work mirrors her public service, creating pathways to opportunity for underserved communities, advancing inclusive practices, and mentoring the next generation of Yakima leaders. Raised in the Yakima Valley and a graduate of Heritage University and Washington State University, Villanueva has long described herself as a product of the very systems she now works to improve. In an interview with Hispanic Executive Magazine, she reflected on her commitment to addressing the barriers her own family experienced. It's not just about policy, she says. It's about purpose and people. Throughout her board service, Villanueva helped prioritize legislative advocacy, championing state-level efforts to expand local effort assistance and close funding gaps for communities like Yakima. She worked closely with fellow board members, elected officials, and community groups to ensure Yakima's voice is heard in Olympia. She also served as a visible role model for young Latinas in the Yakima Valley. Graciela has been a powerful voice for equity and opportunity. Her lived experience, deep understanding of organizational leadership, HR background, and tireless belief in students helped shape a culture where putting kids first is not just a phrase, it is policy. Graciela doesn't just lead, she inspires. Villanueva's final months on the board were marked by continued progress and celebration. This fall, the board received its 4th Board of Distinction award in the last 5 years, recognized by the Washington State School Directors Association for its visionary leadership and deep commitment to educational equity. Reflecting on her service, Villanueva said she is proud of the work the board accomplished and optimistic about what lies ahead. Serving the students and families of Yakima has been one of the greatest honors of my life, she said. I will continue to be their advocate, just from a different seat. Please join me in congratulating and thanking Graciela Villanueva. Trinkets. The swag.
Wow, the picture came down.
There are a couple of things that are also appropriate before I allow Martha an opportunity. She's clutched at it often enough that we felt like you needed to have one with you.
I love this.
And it comes with the
Oh, thank you.
So when Corey gets
I
lippy
love
at
it.
home,
I'm gonna take it to work. I'm just gonna annoy everyone at work. all the time
carry
now.
it with you wherever you go.
Yes,
I'm gonna burn
exactly.
my purse, yeah. Right?
One of the most common questions we've heard from Graciela at school presentations, just like the one we experienced today, is the question of, if you had a magic wand, what would you do? What would you change, or what would you add on to in this opportunity? So the board has given you your very own magic wand.
Oh, look at that. Thank you. Oh. Oh, fun. Thank you.
It is magic.
Yeah, I love that.
Martha, would you like to?
I have had the pleasure and privilege and honor of serving with Graciela for all of her 13 years. And I will greatly miss having her wise counsel on this board. She always brings us back to what's the most important about what we're talking about. Whatever the topic is, she brings us back to what should our focus be. And that dedication to making sure that we don't go down the rabbit trails and we pay attention to what's important is such a value to this board, as demonstrated by all of the boards of distinction honors that we've received. And it's a loss to our board to have you leave. So just know that we may call on you from time to time to get your wise counsel about what we should be focusing on in any particular area. So thank you for your service. Thank you for the time you've given up with your family for the betterment of the school district and the students that we all serve. Thank you very much, and I will miss you. So I may call to get a Graciela fix from time to time.
I wouldn't tell you no.
Well, thank you so much. This is really surprised that, to receive the recognition. So thank you so much. I'm really touched by your words, President Beckett. And the words you used really are true. This really has been an honor and a privilege for me to
oh geez, serve the kids of Yakima schools and the community and the staff and everyone who's been involved in the last 13 years, the work of educating the students, and look forward to continuing to be involved, look forward to the calls, and certainly will miss each of you and the connections that we've had. And it really has just been, again, an honor and privilege to serve. And, that week in June, while I'll be relaxing, that graduation week, I'll also be a little sad because that really is the capstone to the board service, being able to shake the hands of all the kids and seeing their smiles and their excitement that week. So I will be a little bit sad that I'm missing that. So thank you all so much for all of your support and all the work that you all will continue to do for Yakima's kids.
You can always come and sit.
Well, thank you and congratulations.
Thank
For our board and our guests, of course, in the update section, we do have the list under community engagement of the upcoming school board meetings, and we have a lengthy calendar of highlights for activities going on in our individual buildings. I believe at that point, this takes us to our first comment, our first opportunity for comment from the public.
There are none on agenda items.
And for agenda items. Okay, so we will keep moving then. We'll go to our section on approvals. Our first item today is the ratification of the 2025 to 2027 collective bargaining agreement between Yakima Professional Technical Association and the Yakima School District. I'll turn it over to Mr. Murrieta.
We are seeking approval of the ratification of the Hurry up. Oh, brother. We are seeking the approval of the 2025-2027 collective bargaining agreement between the Yakima Professional Technical Association and the Yakima School District. I move that the Board of Directors approve the agreement between the Yakima Professional Tech. Oh, I'm sorry. I'm tripping again. Yeah,
I move that the board approve the ratification of the 25 to 27 collective bargaining agreement between YPTA and Yakima School District.
Thank you, Norm. It's been moved. Is there a second?
Second.
Is there any discussion on the motion? Hearing no discussion, Barb, would you please take the roll?
Director Walker,
Aye.
Director Rice,
Aye.
Vice President Villanueva,
Aye.
President Beckett.
Aye.
Motion passes 4-0.
Thank you, Mr. Murrieta.
I would like to take the opportunity to thank the YPTA bargaining team co-presidents Margaret DeLong and Natalie Tinejo, along with WEA Representative Will Oakes, and the YSD bargaining team of Chris Miller, Olivia Martinez. I was also on that team. Sorry about the faux pas earlier.
That's okay. Excellent work all the way around. Thank you very much.
You're welcome.
Our next approval is Resolution 03.25.26, the certification of 2025 excess property taxes. And for this, we'll go to Mr. Cooper.
Good evening, members of the board. Before you this evening is an approval of your annual taxing levy. So once you create an election resolution way back when, those amounts come on a 4-year cycle in the election resolution. This is the final piece of the process. OSPI gives us our levy authority for the year. And then once you take action, this is the amount that we transmit to the county that will be affixed to your constituents' tax bills. Obviously, I'm not going to make a motion, but I do recommend passage of this very important measure this evening.
Because I'm about to leave.
I know. If you have any questions, let me know.
You just upset the apple cart, I guess.
Well, I will move that The board approved resolution number 03.25.26, certification of 2026 excess property taxes.
Second.
It's been moved and seconded. I'll make one notification or clarification that is for 2025 excess property taxes, according to the action letter. Is that accurate?
Technically approving action.
Okay. Thank you. Okay, excellent. We have the motion and a second. Is there any further discussion? Hearing none, Barb, would you please take the roll?
Director Walker,
Aye.
Director Rice, Vice President Villanueva, President Beckett.
Aye.
Motion passes 4-0.
Our third approval today is an approval to prepare an election resolution for a 2026 capital bond measure. And again, back to Mr. Cooper.
It would be sufficient for the members of the board if I give the presentation seated, given we don't have a presentation station this evening. Okay.
Absolutely.
So before you this evening is a presentation to consider directing the superintendent as a designee to prepare an election resolution for a future capital bond measure. So I'm going to go forward. Oh, you don't, no clicks, just Barb will be in unison. So first off, this presentation has a mixture of data, both internal and external. Special thanks to DA Davidson. They provide up-to-date interest rates and tax modeling that you'll see throughout the presentation. So I'd be remiss not to thank Mr. Pleger, DA Davidson. Quickly, for both those at home and members of the board and audience this evening, there are 3 taxing measures that a school district can exercise for the most part. That would be an educational programs and operations levy, or if you're old enough like me, it's an M&O levy, maintenance and operations. That is your operating levy, which you just certified collection for a levy that was passed 2 years ago. You have the ability to do a capital projects levy, which is for technology or small repairs. Unless you're a larger district, then potentially you could do some remodels or large modernizations with those funds. And then the last would be school bonds, and those, as we'll say this evening, bonds are for building. Those are for large construction projects. And similar to your home mortgage, you would get approval from your voters for a certain amount, and then you repay that with taxpayer funds over a longer duration. So this chart shows Yakima's election passage rate history. So you'll notice, and for my colleagues, there's one buckskin line in 2022. Sorry, I can't even read that. The capital projects levy, as you know, failed. That's the one failing measure we've had in the most recent history. And if you look back, the most recent bond measure you can see was passed in May of 2009. So remember, 60% supermajority. The district ran bond measures in 2007 and 8 respectively. 2006 and 7 respectively, took a year off, passed the EP&O or M&O levy, and then ran again in 2009 for a successful bond measure. That bond measure funded the construction predominantly of Eisenhower and Davis high schools. And then, of course, before we go, Barb, sorry. Before we leave that, you can see our most recent election result, the EP&O was 65.71%, so a very decent passage rate given the environment. This is a map of the United States of America. Yes, that's right, perfunctory teaching. That's I'm just going to ground you all. That is a map of the United States. And you will notice that the green states are the only states in the union that have a 60% supermajority to pass a bond measure. So you got Washington alone on the West Coast, a couple of the Dakotas, and then what do you have over there? You have Mississippi and Tennessee on the East Coast and Southeast, and something way up there in the Northeast. Thank you, Barb, for that. Thank you for letting me figure out if that was New Hampshire or Connecticut or the Granite State. So this is the state election results for bond measures and the resulting passage rate for each election. You can see they're broken down into calendar years. I will say the state average is stubbornly stuck around 40% when you aggregate all those elections up or down. Those kind of smooth out. So of all the bond measures that are passed, only 40% pass, either on the historically. So that means there's a 60% failure rate with most bond elections statewide. This chart you've seen before. The last couple of meetings, we have touched upon the largest districts in the state. You scroll down, you can see where we are at. So of the top 25 school districts, we're the only school district in the state of Washington of its size that has not requested or nor passed a bond measure since 2010. So that was a pretty glaring piece of information, particularly given our capital needs, which I'll touch upon in a bit. And then, of course, hold on, Barb, go down just a touch. A little more, a little more, right there. Yeah. What was also eye-raising was the amount of the top 25. So just under 600 million, 586 million was the average of the top 25 school districts. And we talked a little bit in earlier meetings that Seattle does not need to run bond measures. They run capital levies to fund all their construction because they have a big enough assessed valuation that their taxpayers can actually pay that off over a 4 or 6 year period, where it takes us between 20 and 25 years to do it. Lake Washington as well. They failed several bond measures in a row, and then they are now the second largest district in the state. They've also gone to that model where they're funding the bulk of their capital improvements out of a levy, which does have its advantages. Obviously, simple majority +1. And then, of course, it's really a function of your tax base. Can you pay, just like at home, if you had an annual income that you could afford to pay your mortgage off in 5 years, you might do it. If your annual income's a little less and you just spread that out, then you're going to pay that debt off over time. And that's what most districts do, is they pay their debt off over a lengthy time period to keep that tax rate nice and level for their constituency. And then here's a zoom in into the Yakima County school districts. There have been 33 bond attempts, as it says in the chart, and then the average, of course, is receiving of 25.5 million. Then Superintendent and I were discussing CETA leading the way with 4 bond attempts and passing for 76 million in construction. So less funding in the Yakima Valley. However, we're the only one, again, which tracks with our earlier piece of information, that has not run a bond measure since 2010 of any significant size. Is there any questions about the Valley or Yakima County in particular? Okay. You're probably like, okay, Mr. Cooper, how does this all occur? So I do want you to recall that we have done 2 facility advisory groups over the last 24 to 30 months. There was the original CFAC group that Dr. Darling was leading, and I came in on the tail end of. And then also the FACT committee, which is ongoing, but also had a charge to reaffirm the work that was done by the previous committee, ensure that we had a rational basis for potential capital bond measure. So going into all that, though, is the financial planning. I will say, when looking at the proposed measure that you may direct us to do in the next couple of meetings, Yakima has billions of dollars of capital needs, just to put it frankly. The proposed bond measure makes some inroads to that, but given the age and condition of our facilities, if you compare us to my prior employer, which during my tenure, beginning in 2002, we did over just under $1.5 billion of the capital improvements. And to maintain a district of this size, you have to continually invest in your capital facilities, and we have not done so in quite a lengthy period. So, well, the amounts you'll see in the potential projects, they are really more about the function of the tax rate and the tax tolerance of the community than an exhaustive list of our needs, because our needs are lengthy, but we do need to begin somewhere. So all that being said, when you're looking at bonds, you look at when they're sold, the resulting tax rate, what your assessed valuation is, and then, believe it or not, President Beckett and Superintendent Green and I were talking about the presentation. I'm like, oh, I gotta wait, the Fed's gonna cut rates. So interest rates also drive your borrowing cost up or down. So that's obviously an important piece of the bond planning puzzle. So what's before you this evening for your consideration would be a 2026 bond election. We would likely, as I talked about, do not have the capacity to issue all the bonds at one time, because once you sell bonds, you start just like a mortgage, then you start to pay principal and interest. So the district would likely have to split the bond sales, we call them bond sales, into two tranches or two iterations. You would do, let's say, 100 million here and 100 million there, and that's to spread your principal and interest payments over time to keep your tax rate nice and level. We also need to model assessed valuation. So Yakima County has, and the city of Yakima has had some rapid assessed valuation growth that is starting to tail off to more historical averages. So when we build the models, we like to bake in a more conservative. So the models, I like to show our math. We have prelim growth, which we have very solid information from the county that will be the actual growth. Why we call it preliminary. We model in 3.5% there, and then 3% through 2030, and then 2.5% thereafter. And then we make assumptions about the bond markets or capital markets, and what the current interest rate is. And then one of the benchmarks, and this is kind of wonky, is we look at the 10-year treasury bill. That is often kind of the benchmark on how treasuries generally are going to be sold, in this case municipal bonds, that they move off the 10-year treasury. In the model, we've also worked in a 50 basis point or 0.5% cushion. So we model more aggressive borrowing costs than we hope to realize on date of sale. But that all provides some surety into the model. And then, of course, when we get to the tax rate graph, one thing that we made a lot of progress on last levy cycle was to get our local EP&O measure up to almost our maximum. So we had started at the max the first year of the preceding levy, and then we had rapid assessed valuation growth. So that, since we're per thousand, that lowered that per thousand. We're just under that now. We're 230 and change, but the models for long-term, I just felt it was prudent and transparent both. Just model that at 250 so that if at that point in time the district wants to go for its statutory maximum, it's modeled into the tax rate overall already. Wouldn't be a presentation about bonds if you didn't have some interest rate graphs. We touched on this a little bit earlier, and it is really truly interest rate dependent. That's why sometimes districts have the ability, just like on your home mortgage, you can refinance your debt or portions thereof. So in certain cases, when you sell bonds for 5% or 4.5% on the long end, which is the very end of the tail of the bond sale, you often have an opportunity to refinance at lower debt, just like you would your home mortgage. You can see for this potential bond measure, we're modeling 20-year terms, which is the standard term to pay back municipal bonds, and then just modeling two different sets of interest rate, first and second sale. To build crystal ball, knowing in 24 to 36 months what the interest rate is going to be in the United States. But again, we have to model both conservatively and prudently as we go forward. Okay, there's the assessed valuation. In my world, you'll often see bond assessed valuation, or there'll be a levy assessed valuation. Here they do not differentiate because that has to do with the timber value. But you can see we've had some serious step ups in assessed valuation, really starting in 22. You can see the ramp going, and then that's our prelim assessed valuation, just under 9.6 billion. So the assessed valuation, when you hear that term bandied about, that's the value of all taxable real property within the school district, including commercial. Certain properties are tax exempt if they're government owned, for an example, or certain hospitals also have tax exempt status. So they may have an assessed valuation, but they're not going to be paying property taxes. So that is the value of all your commercial and residential and taxable property all into one. Okay. After all that, you say, well, what does that boil down to? So the concept, first I'll go to the history. What I understand is the bond measures that failed that were initially attached to Ike and Davis also had the rebuild of 4 elementary schools on them. Not to date myself, but the first elementary school I was in charge of and rebuilt from top to bottom was about $12 million. It's a lot more expensive than that now. So the bond measure failed with the rebuild of 4 elementary schools at that point in time. We have done condition assessment through ICOS, which is required under state statute to qualify for state match. Basically, you hire an architect or an outside agency to go through your buildings piece by piece and look at their overall condition. So the 2 buildings that would be proposed for rebuild are both the oldest and had the worst condition per our ICOS survey that was done about 12 to 18 months ago. So what would a $200 million potential bond package be, and what would include in it? So the projects or proposed projects are listed above. Would be a rebuild of Hoover and Garfield. Note that we do include the state match, and that's the dollars that were just calculated about 12 months ago. Those amounts move based on the legislative session, and as you can see, even with the age of our facilities, you're not too much over the sale. You're about double the sales tax roughly on Hoover, just to put it in perspective, right? If you look at sales tax, just to ground everybody, we do have to pay sales tax on the bulk of our construction projects. So when you see a project for 80 million, not all of that is taxable, but the bulk of it is. So you have another 8% and change that goes back both to local and state governments. So a proposed rebuild of Hoover and Garfield. You can see the total project totals there are about 85 million, 85.2 estimated project budget for Hoover, and just under 83 million for Garfield. The difference in the price or the estimated project cost is the planned size of the building. So currently Hoover would be planned at a 32 classroom rebuild, and Garfield would be about 28 classrooms. The other and very important element that we talked through with the committees are Title IX and ADA upgrades. So we often have portions of our buildings that are not ADA compliant because ADA does not apply to a lot of our construction because it was pre-ADA enactment, which means you can utilize the facilities as they're constructed as long as a certain amount is not modernized or rebuilt. However, we still have access issues that we need to remedy. The other Title IX component of that, of course, potentially the softball field issue we've been working on for quite some time, I understand. And so it's Superintendent and I spoke. It is, I think, good just to be transparent that we are trying to deal with Title IX and ADA issues. We do not have the money in the general fund to currently do that. But to bond that, we would have the proceeds to finish out those projects. Now, as I said earlier, this list is by far not exhaustive when it comes to dollar amount. We did set some money aside for sidewalks, courtyards, and asphalt. I know that's not sexy, but the maintenance it is. I've never heard the term alligator used more, or alligatoring. I think we use crocodiling, whatever rough reptilian we could reference back to. But a lot of our asphalt and pavement, as you can see, needs some significant work. So that would be a little bit of a down payment on parking lots, courtyards, sidewalks that also help access, but are also part of our infrastructure that we have to maintain and put together with, I wouldn't say baling wire in this case, but mortar and some gravel. HVAC, you're like, Mr. Cooper, that is a lot of money for HVAC. No, it's not. HVAC is an extraordinarily expensive component of our operation. We are also working on compliance with the Clean Buildings Act, which has us benchmark our energy usage and then requires we hit certain characteristics or benchmarks within the statute to become compliant. That can cost a significant amount of money. Thus far, we've been getting it through grant funding. However, when a unit fails for, let's say, this building, and we have to do a total rework of it, you're going to be a couple $1 million worth of HVAC equipment. And so the equipment itself has long lead times and is very expensive, but then also the installation and repiping, et cetera. So $9.5 million seems like a lot of money, but for HVAC, If you've done it on a micro scale in your home, just imagine multiplying that by hundreds of thousands of square feet. The other thing that I generally put into every bond measure, at both that future project and emergency repair reserve, you like to believe when you're planning a capital measure that you have everything figured out. Sometimes you do and sometimes you don't. So generally that reserve is just for what it says, but it's also for inflationary hedge. So just a small amount of inflationary hedge in there. There is some inflationary hedge built into the larger projects. However, as you've seen, and we've seen in the last 5 years, inflation, it can be very volatile. I mean, construction inflation was running 30% during the height of COVID and shortly thereafter. And construction inflation generally runs higher than CPI because there's way more inputs and supply chains that go into it. So that is a future project reserve. As a percentage is what, 3-4% of the total. The other major issue that we seem to have been dealing with piecemeal because we don't have the overall funds is our playgrounds at our elementary. Our elementary playgrounds, we have ADA access issues there. We also, for the most part, except for Robertson, I don't believe have fall matting. And then which causes twofold, it causes access issues, and then also can increase playground injury. And so most new buildings or newer facilities or playgrounds, you'll see a traditional big toy like we're all used to, but then you will see the heavy, thick rubberized matting. And so that is really one of the expense drivers. So the money set aside there should be able to upgrade each elementary's playground. And each elementary is in a different spot when it comes to upgrades. Some might need some more underground dirt work than others. Some might need to change where it's actually located. Some might just need a big toy in the matting. So, but that money, as it's currently budgeted, would allow playground improvements at every facility, or every building, elementary building, and solve a huge amount of access issues. Not to mention the other ancillary benefit is we do spend money annually on chips and pea gravel and things of that nature. So your operating costs lower as well because you're not putting, Anthony, I think it's like 30 or 35,000 to fill up a whole thing of chips, if I recall, in a playground. So the big chips aren't that cheap. And then roof replacements, the same thing. Over assuming that a bond measure passes sometimes in 26, this would be money for the next 6 to 8 years thereafter. So same thing with the roof replacement. One of my biggest concerns as your CFO is we have something unintended, always unintended, unplanned for like a roof failure, and then we have to take that money out of the classroom. So sometimes when you put it in perspective, you could buy a roof for an elementary, or you could buy all new K-12 curriculum, both about a couple $1 million. So when you start to think of it and what you're going to give up potentially out of the general fund to actually just do a roof, which is obviously the most important thing. You can't have school when the weather's coming in, but at the same time, that then takes money right out of the classroom and then out of your student intervention. So I know, again, I'm going to use the term unsexy for some, but for a maintenance person and operations, roofs and money for roof replacement is very essential. And then one of the last pieces, we have made community investments in turf and tracks all around the district. And so there are funds set aside for the turf replacement at Zeffel. That is very close to useful life. I think we're getting close to year 12-ish. So usually the carpet itself will wear out between 10 and 15 years, even with proper maintenance. So in that case, it would be a full carpet replacement for Zeffel and then resurfacing of as many tracks as we can get done, along with some tennis courts. That brings the round figure to $200 million plus the state match, so 220 and change. And you're like, well, what does that do to taxes, Mr. Cooper? Because that is the ultimate question. So $200 million bond issue. The buckskin portion, I can, if you want me to stand up. Do you? And we'll go up. Multitasking. So the buckskin portion is our bond that was approved in 2009. As you can see, our historical tax rates pre-2019 were about it went from 480 to 481 to 463 a thousand. And then it dropped. So the 1 year that the state lowered everybody's levy authority to $1.50, $1.50. Then they decided the year after that to make it $2.50 because we know they just backed into the math for the 1 year and decided it wasn't going to work. Then we had one of our lowest tax rates at $2.98 per thousand. And then a new EP&O was passed at $2.50 per thousand. And you can still see we have the old bond debt. Graphically, you can see that the bond debt tapers off from the 2009 bond measure and is paid off in 2031. So you can see the bond tapers. The bottom green is the modeling we discussed for the EP&O or the M&O measure. So you can see in 2026, for example, we're at 234 a thousand. So we have left about 16 cents per thousand on the table when it comes to your statutory authority. And then, but thereafter, both I said for transparency and prudency's sake, we're modeling a $2.50 per levy. The dark blue then would be where the first bond measure would be sold and then taxes would be levied thereafter. So you can see the goal from the planning side and the communication side both is to have a level and boring tax rate. Obviously, I can be an exciting CFO, but I want your tax rate to be boring and predictable. No zigzag. Once it's set in, you want it to be as level as possible so that the business community and property holders can have a predictable tax bill from year to year. The increase, the net increase currently would be just about 80 cents per thousand of assessed valuation. And you can see how that debt structure looks over time. So first bond measure is a dark blue. It gets sold and then that debt would tail off all the way to 2045. And then that second bond is then layered on top. Keep the level as rate, the rate as level as possible with a small decline in 2033. So that is a graphical representation of both your current and what the proposed tax structure would be. Okay. As we drive a little deeper into what it means for the individual. So a few takeaways from this chart. One is for every $100,000 of home value, it would be approximately $80 for you. Okay. The home value that we took was the average sales value. This is from Yakima County. And the sales value to the assessed value, since they aren't the same thing, they're about 95% here. Each county kind of varies. So that is the actual average assessed value for a single family residence currently within our taxing jurisdiction. So a $200 million bond issue would roughly be $246 annually, or just over $20 a month of increased taxes for a $200 million measure. Whew. And then the final touch, of course, would be the election dates and when the filing deadlines would be. So just for your points of reference. I know I went through a lot of information, but we have been providing you some snapshots of where we're at, when it comes to other large districts in the state. And then ultimately, as the superintendent and I were working on the presentation, I wanted to be as transparent as possible about what the value proposition is for your potential bond measure and what the resulting tax impact would be. So before you this evening would be is a resolution to direct the superintendent designee to prepare an election resolution. This is a quarter step in that process. So this is here's the information. Here's what the impact would be. The board, of course, is the only body that can put a taxing measure on the ballot. And you have to do that via formal resolution that provides both the dollar amount and the resulting tax impact by calendar year. So that's required by state law. So, well, there's a lot of information in there. Be happy to entertain any questions you have.
Any questions for Mr. Cooper? Questions about the process?
Just comment, no question, but we've had an opportunity to review materials ahead of time and read through information and have other conversations. And so appreciated all of the advanced information that has been shared to help us prepare for the conversation today. Thank you.
Well, we've been asked to direct the superintendent to prepare an election resolution for a 2026 capital bond measure. Is there a motion?
I move that the Board of Directors direct the superintendent or designee to prepare an election resolution for the 2026 capital bond measure.
Second.
Is there any discussion? Hearing none, Barb, would you please take the roll?
Director Walker,
Aye.
Director Rice,
Aye.
Vice President Villanueva,
Aye.
President Beckett.
Aye.
Motion passes 4-0.
Thank you all very much. Thank you, Jake. That takes us to our second opportunity for public comment. I believe we have one person signed up. Is that
We do
it?
have one. Mariana from the Heritage University, speaking on mental health today.
Welcome. Thank you for being here today.
Hello, my name's Mariana and I'm a senior nursing student from Heritage University. I have lived in the Yakima Valley my whole life. I graduated from Sunnyside High School in 2020, and the reason I'm here today is to speak about the importance of prioritizing mental health for our high school students. When I was in high school, mental health was rarely talked about. We had just one counselor for nearly 400 students, and most of us didn't know how to ask for help. Many of my classmates struggled with anxiety, depression, and pressure at home, but there weren't enough resources or awareness to support them. Now, during my clinical rotations at the emergency department at Multicare Yakima Memorial Hospital, I have seen the consequences. Almost every rotation I did in the ER involved patients under the age of 18 who came in for suicidal thoughts or self-harm. These are preventable, and it shows us that the support students need should start long before they reach the ER. Right now, the approaches school use to address mental health are often limited. Most students don't get enough support until they are already in crisis. According to the CDC, one approach that has shown results is targeted education focused on social and emotional development. These programs give small group or one-on-one lessons that teach students how to manage emotions, build healthy relationships, and handle stress. These programs have shown to reduce anxiety, depression, and feelings of withdrawal, especially in students who are already at risk for emotional or behavioral problems. When schools combine these small group lessons with regular classroom learning about social and emotional skills, students show better mental health outcomes and improve coping skills. That's why I'm here today, to advocate for a stronger proactive approach to mental health in our schools. As a future nurse and a lifelong member of this community, I ask you to consider expanding mental health support in our schools and implement evidence-based programs to ensure all students have the resources they need to thrive. Thank you so much for your time.
Thank you for being here. Under our policy governance section, we have a number of items this evening. The first is a first reading for new language from operational policy 1111. I'll turn it over to Mr. No.
Thank you. This is before you for first reading. It's a change to the statute that included additional language required under the oath for new directors. Basically, the old oath requirements in the statute just included, basically saying you're going to uphold the Constitution of the state of Washington and the United States Constitution. The new language includes the language and the laws of the state of Washington. It was pretty implicit before that was the case, but this is spelled out now. So we're changing the OP to include that language. Thank you.
Are there any questions? It looks like the survey will be sent tomorrow. We'd like to have that back by the 13th so that we can have action at our November 18th meeting. Our next item is, actually our next couple of items are policies 1000.3.0 through 3.3. These are on the annual rotation. Global governance commitment, our governing style, the board job description, and the agenda planning. The policies are linked in board docs for you to review. If you have any suggestions regarding language or content, you can submit those. And those surveys will also be sent tomorrow and are due back by the 11th for our 18th meeting. Does anyone have any comment on any of those 4 policies? Hearing none, then we'll move on to item number 6, which is the approval of ratings for policy 1000.2.5 asset protection. 3 responses were returned. All 3 indicate compliance. Does any member wish to add any comment or elaborate on comment for any of or those responses for 1000.2.5? Okay, hearing none, then I would entertain a motion to approve the ratings of policy 1000.2.5.
So moved.
Second.
Any discussion? All in favor, please say aye.
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 Any opposed? Motion carries. Our final item on policy governance is the approval of ratings for 1000.1.0, our global ends statements, goals number 1, 2, and 4. Regarding goal number 1, I believe we had 1 listed as compliant, 2 reporting as making sufficient progress. Goal number 2, 1 listed as compliant, 2 reporting as making sufficient progress. And goal number 4, 1 listed compliant, 1 indicating increased emphasis as needed, and 1 indicating making sufficient progress. Would we like to take these individually or as a group?
Do you, historically, we've asked that those who indicate anything less than making sufficient progress or compliant provide rationale for that categorization.
Well, and there's opportunity in all of the surveys for comments to
Okay.
be added if anybody wants to.
Well, I guess that's not what I guess what I'm saying is if there is a rating less than making sufficient progress, we've decided as a group in the past to discuss that particular rating. And I guess I would see the need extra emphasis as something that we would want to discuss so that we all are on board and it's public record.
We added the category of increased emphasis is recommended last year, I believe. I don't think it was longer ago than that. As a stopgap in between making sufficient progress and compliance. I think because of the phrase sufficient being somewhat subjective. Is it the board's pleasure that you would like to have anything regarding increased emphasis added to be added to a required comment section in our survey?
I don't have a problem with that, but I didn't notice there were any comments to explain the rating, and so that kind of bothers me a little bit that there's a rating, but there's no explanation for that particular rating that I could find.
Yeah. Okay, so do we want to take these individually or do we want to take them as a group?
I guess I would suggest taking the first 2 as a group.
Okay. So that would be a motion for
I
approving the
move-
ratings for policy 1000.1.0, goals number 1 and 2. Is
Yes, so moved.
Second.
there any discussion? Okay, all in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries. Getting back to the number 4 in my if you look at goal number 4, bilingual, biliterate by graduation, all students will have the opportunity to become culturally competent, academically successful, and prepared for the global job market in 2 or more languages. Personally, I felt like we've had to make the tough decision because of staffing and finances to pause the rollout of the bilingual program in all of our the remaining 2 buildings. And according to our strategic plan that was written 6 years ago, I know that's a priority for the community. And so I felt like the comment of increasing the level of emphasis on that is somewhat obvious. Whether or not everyone agrees with me is subjective and up to them.
I guess what I might suggest is that if there's something particular to that individual goal that the board would like to see as a special emphasis,
Somebody's having
that maybe it's worthy of a discussion about what the board would like to particularly see as an area of special emphasis. Is it the buildings that we're in? Is it quicker rollout? Is it expansion to the middle school? What specifically do we want to see as an area of special emphasis as a board?
Okay.
And we could do that at the retreat in August, or if we have one coming up in the spring.
I know we had talked about having that on the agenda at one point. Yeah.
Thank you.
Okay, then we'll I would entertain a motion to approve the ratings for 1000.1.4, goal number 4.
So moved.
Second.
Is there any discussion? All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Are there any opposed? Thank you. Motion carries. I believe we do not have need for executive session this evening. Is that correct? Excellent. Well, then, one last time, I'll say thank you and congratulations to Vice President Villanueva. I hope that you use the magic wand for good.
I will, yes. Speed up meetings.
Congratulations, and I'd invite you to gavel us out for adjournment today.
Thank you.
It works.
Yes, this is fun. I do love this.